looking at this list we're about to go through, and how much did we take for granted an 80-minute hooker at Melbourne who goal kicked in a top 4 team every single week? Like, was hooker always fucked and Cameron Smith just made it look good?
Possibly. I know, like, thinking back to the day, Robbie Farah was always a really good alternate option, but, like, he jarred a lot of attacking stats as well, also played 80. It was kind of only ever those two,
It was only ever those two, let's be honest here.
But, yeah, an 80-minute big work rate, like Cameron Smith, oh, good Lord.
Yeah, just not fair.
What year did you retire? 2020?
2020, yeah.
Yeah, far out. Didn't we ever take it for granted?
Fucking oath.
So Cam Smith, average score per game, 2020, 79. He would have been, 35 or something at the time?
Yeah.
79, 74 in 2019, 64 2018, 75 in 2017, 78 in 2016. And there would have been... So just going through his 2020 season very quickly, he had 4 tons with a top score of 136. He had... 1 score under 49, and that was a 34, and it was in 28 minutes because he got injured. So essentially his lowest score of the year was 49.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I will never forget, we had draft day one year and Cameron Smith was rumoured to miss the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. And I remember because of that, fucking ridiculous, everyone just left him. And I remember he got 1 pick away from me getting Cameron Smith as my second pick. And the guy before got him, which made complete sense. But I just sat there and went, you fucking moron. How did you let this happen?
It's unbelievable.
Shocked me Cameron Smith played round 1.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, of course.
Wild.
So Robbie Farah, 2019, who I'm like, was, probably the only real alternate option, Cam Smith. 2019, average 54, 2018, 62, 2017, 43, 52 in 2016, 58 in 2015. Like, Cam Smith, make a comeback, mate.
Wild.
We need you.
You know what? He would walk in right now and be the best Supercoach option. 100%. Yeah. All right, let's start at the top, mate. HG, Harry Grant, CBA class of 2019. One of our favourite players to watch in this competition, apart from those 3 games a year where he dry fucks us in Origin. Outside of that, we love Harry Grant. $750K. It's a lot of money to spend at hooker, but is there any argument that he isn't the premium option? Talk to me.
No, there's not. He's absolutely the premium option. There's upside to a guy like Jeremy Marshall-King off a bit of an injury-interrupted season last year, but Harry Grant is the number 1 hooker. I think I owned him the entire season last year. I don't think I traded him out even over the Origin period or anything. He didn't get a lot of rest, which was fantastic for Supercoach.
Yeah.
And it paid off, like saved trades, had consistent scoring. But there's far from any assurance of that happening again. You're paying $750K for him. I think I'd pretty confidently say he's going to be the top scoring hooker by the end of the season.
I'm very confident in saying he's going to be the top scoring hooker. Where he fits as far as top scorers in the competition, or where he fits as far as top scorers for guys I'm going to pay over $700K for, I don't know if it makes complete sense to me.
It's difficult. And the other big thing is, we saw in the back end of last year, he was sharing that hooking role and not necessarily playing the 80 minutes. That's okay. So just going in the back end of last year, and again, this was easy into finals, so maybe he's an 80-minute hook. I don't know what Craig Bellamy's going to do with him, but 53 minutes in round 26 for 70 points. He played 66 in round 25 for 59 points. He played 59 minutes in round 24 for 110 points. So that's where I'm kind of like, if these guys are playing 20 minutes less, they're getting a spell. They then, in theory, probably run more. They're more energised when they're on the field. Does it make that much of a difference? Like, potentially it doesn't.
Looking back at Harry Grant's scores from last year, and, obviously in the preseason, we don't need to tell you who's a good Supercoach player. You can tell that we try and find the things that are wrong with players, so you're aware of that sort of stuff. I try and find the negatives in players and work back from there. Just looking through Harry Grant's scores from last year, and I'm looking for his lowest scores, right? Scored 31 points against Manly in round 7. How many minutes do you reckon he played that game?
50.
80. His next lowest score, 34 against the Dolphins in round 12. How many minutes do you reckon he played in that game?
80.
80. His next lowest score, 34 against the Cowboys in round 14. Didn't play 80, but played 73 there. Newcastle, round 21.
Post Origin, that one. I'll give him I'll let him off the hook.
Sure. Against Newcastle, round 21, 36. Played 80 minutes in that game as well. I'm not even trying to make this a negative about Harry Grant. It almost feels like 60 minutes is better for Harry Grant. They're his only scores sub 40, and in every single one of them, he played 80 or 73 minutes.
Yeah. He had and then on top of that, as I mentioned, the 110 in 59 minutes in round 24. I mean, I know it's not a major deduction, but 149 points against Parry in round 22, played 72 minutes. So he's still got a spell.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. I think that we need to shift our mindset a little bit on Harry Grant, and I am more than happy to admit I am the last one to do that. I hate my hookers not playing 80 minutes, but Harry Grant, he has got the runs on the board. For me, I just think that coming out of an origin period and whatnot, there will be better times to buy Harry Grant. I'm very high on another hooker that we'll talk about very, very soon. Are you thinking you'll start with him?
I'm getting closer and closer to it. I'm going back to 2022 as well. Pretty well played 80 minutes every game. In games that he didn't, played 75 minutes in round 23, 113. I know it's only 5 minutes less. I don't remember the reasoning behind it. It could have been HR or something. But he still had a 5 minute rest, and he came out, got 113. Did that shift in his mindset to go, I've had a rest, I can run one out. I don't know, I might be clutching at straws. 70 minutes, that probably was a HIA based on the 10 minutes off. 62. I go back to, there's a game he played 63 minutes back in round 80 against Newcastle in 2022, and he scored 104 points. So you're like, maybe we're trying to find things to suit the narrative, but the point is, these games where he's playing 60 to 65, he's scoring arguably better. So maybe if he does share that hooking role, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, very. And you know what? You know the other thing I do like, and granted, he might share the hooking role, but who's he sharing it with? It's a Bronson Garlic. It's a Wishart. It's not like they have an out-and-out 9 out there that's fighting for 30 minutes. They're fighting for 15 minutes.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Which makes it a lot easier. I'm still leaning against starting with Harry Grant. I think I will look elsewhere. I think I will look to move to Harry Grant a little bit later on. But I do know from my experience with Harry Grant, as soon as, and it happened to me last year, as soon as you had him and he had one good score, I sort of went, oh.
People panicked.
Yeah, people panicked.
So he's priced on a 73-point average from last season. His last 4 seasons, he's averaged 73, 78, 74, 71. Pre-Origin last year, 11 or 12 games, whatever it might have been, he averaged 69.27. In 2022, leading into the Origin period, he averaged 85.6. To be, no, I won't say lock-in scores like that, but you probably are, with an upside of he can score tons. I'm leaning more and more towards him.
Let me ask you this. First few weeks of the season, plays the Penrith Panthers week 1. Down there at Amy Park, to be fair, but Penrith, never going to be an easy game. Even if Penrith starts slow, you know they're going to defend well. They started, I remember sitting here at the end of round 1, not here because I didn't have this space and this didn't exist. This was a vintage clothes shop, so we obviously weren't sitting here, Tim. But I remember sitting at Bloke in a Bar and everyone's panicking. Penrith have lost it. They'd conceded 24 points across 2 weeks to the Brisbane Broncos and to the team from England. They still defended well. Yeah. I believe we then went to Wagga a few weeks later. They lost to South Sydney. I think they conceded 14 points or something, Matty. It was a pretty low-scoring affair. So, you're still not going to get a heap of points. Melbourne played Penrith. They then played the Warriors, who the Warriors are a top 4 team. I don't think they're at that calibre, but I think it's not an easy matchup, in my opinion. They then played the Newcastle Knights at Newcastle. We know that they're decent. They then go into a bye, and then they play the Brisbane Broncos. It's not an ideal start.
Yeah, not... pardon me. Certainly not an ideal start. I'm just looking back to last year. I do think there's probably a sense of the Munsters about Harry Grant in that a good opposition he will live for. He knows he needs to. Penrith last year, round 18, he scored 73 points in 80 minutes, 58 in base that game, which is he based 45 last season, so well above. Did score a try in that game. In round 23 against Penrith in Penrith, 80 minutes, 59 in base. Like they're his two highest bases essentially of the season. He based 60 in round one last year against Parramatta. There was extra time. But yeah, 73 in that game. So yeah, I think he's good enough to overcome the opposition, live for it. But you do make a good point. Like it's a tough draw to start.
Yeah, and you have a look at the opposition that he's taken on in the first few weeks. He played Penrith twice last year. You're right, he scored a try in one of those games, got 70. The other game he scored 57. Newcastle, the back end of last season when they were going well at Newcastle, he scored 36 points. Yeah, it's an interesting one there. Brisbane took on them at Amy Park, 79. That was during the Origin period, to be fair. Had a 100+ score against the Warriors last year. I think that if he had a knockout draw where I'm going, fuck, the first 4 or 5 games, he could really blow it away. Probably changed a little bit for me. You're right. Start of last season, he based 60 in the first few weeks. I think something we need to keep in mind over these first few weeks, and especially with your Vegas players, they're going to come back from Vegas with some incredible base stat numbers.
Yeah.
That are going to blow us away. It's not going to be the reality.
There's going to be a lot of red herrings from that Vegas
100%
games.
Yes. And hopefully that's the worst we get out of Vegas. So, yeah, Harry Grant, an interesting one. I'm leaning away from him at the moment, but I'm more than happy to admit I tend to get the coldest feet of all time the closer we get.
He's currently not in my team for the next bloke that we'll talk about. However, that could be a very temporary arrangement.
Yes, completely agree.